Welcome to Washington in Focus. I'm Cole McNeely, General Manager of America's Talking Network. Joining me today is the Center Square's Washington reporter, one of the Washington reporters, Randy Brock. Randy, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Randy, you produced a story about several Washington state-based business associations suing the EPA over its, quote, impossible water standards. What's this all about?
The Association of Washington Business is leading a lawsuit against the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, contending it has imposed water quality standards on Washington state that are, like you said, impossible to achieve. These standards allegedly conflict with the agency's own guidance and have no basis in, quote, real-world data. The AWB filed its complaint Monday in U.S. District Court in the District of Columbia. There's some other plaintiffs in the lawsuit. They include the Northwest Pulp and Paper Association, the American Forest and Paper Association, Greater Spokane Incorporated, and that's a regional advocacy organization representing some business interests in Eastern Washington. And lastly, the Food Northwest, which is the region's largest food processing trade association. The lawsuit was filed Monday. As of Wednesday, the EPA had not yet responded to the lawsuit, and at this point, no hearings are scheduled.
So, Randy, what exactly is the lawsuit about?
This lawsuit faults requirements the EPA imposed under the Federal Clean Water Act on holders of wastewater discharge permits in Washington state. So anybody who's treating water, effluent, and sending it out, it sets standards for the quality of that water. The plaintiffs want a court order to vacate this EPA rule that was imposed in 2022, claiming that its risk analysis, its economic analysis, and its unattainable PCB water quality standard are both arbitrary and capricious. The PCB reference regards polychlorinated biphenyls, which are carcinogenic chemicals formerly used in industrial and consumer products. The AWB issued a statement on Monday in which President Chris Johnson said that Washington employers have worked closely with policymakers and regulators over the years to develop standards that, in his words, protect human health and improve the quality of the state's waterways while ensuring the continued economic vitality of our state. But now, says Johnson, the EPA has adopted these new standards that, in his words, cannot be met with any existing or reasonably foreseeable future wastewater treatment technology. And that, he said, jeopardizes the operations of thousands of private businesses which generate wastewater as a byproduct. And they also jeopardize municipal wastewater treatment systems. So if this legal challenge turns out to be successful, Johnson said it will restore Washington state's own water quality standards that were adopted in 2016 by the Department of Ecology. Johnson described Ecology's rules as being very stringent and protective, but he said the policies were at least developed with some input from employers and municipalities within our state.
Let me get this right. The EPA came in and changed it?
That's right. And this is where it gets murky because EPA had originally promoted the 2016 rule, but last November, EPA Administrator Michael Regan, who's also named as a defendant in the lawsuit, signed this new rule to restore what he called science-based federal human health criteria for Washington state waters. On its website, the EPA says it revised the Clean Water Act to make sure our state's water quality standards will, quote, adequately protect fish consumers in Washington from exposure to toxic pollutants.
Well, and I imagine in the state of Washington, there's quite a few fish consumers. So this standard is based on fish consumption that might cause cancer. And I guess that leads naturally to the next question, Randy. How many fish are we really talking about here?
Apparently that varies. It depends on what species of fish, where they're caught, how much is consumed, whether you're a child or an adult, the type of chemicals that might be present. So there's a number of variables in the equation. But in their lawsuit, the business associations claim that EPA is relying on assumptions of fish consumption that the agency itself admits are inconsistent with present-day realities. The associations also claim that EPA relied on improper and non-scientific concerns in setting these acceptable risk levels, even though Washington State's own standards were consistent with the EPA's guidance.
Randy, you're the professional journalist here. This all sounds a little bit fishy to me. Can I say that? I'm not sure. Is that allowed in the world of journalism to make bad puns?
It may be a bad pun, but it may be appropriate too. So there is something fishing going on. We'll let the courts sort it out and stay tuned for a ruling in the future.
Man, that's a cliffhanger, Randy. Listeners, you can keep up with Randy's reporting on this at thecentersquare.com. Please subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Are you tired of news that puts politics over people? At the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation, we believe in putting people over politics by delivering nonpartisan news and audio content that serves you, the American taxpayer. With Franklin News Foundation, you can read fact-based, state-focused news for free at thecentersquare.com. You can listen to civil, balanced conversations between policy experts through our podcast network at americastalking.com. Or you can get in-depth news on K-12 education spending, curriculum, and school safety at chalkboardnews.com. It's all free through Franklin, where we put you, the American taxpayer, first in every story, episode, and conversation. And it's only possible through our supporters. Together, we can produce content that puts people over politics and brings Americans the news they deserve. Become a supporter today at franklinnews.org/donate. Once again, that's franklinnews.org/donate.